Yeah. Can you dig it? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Jake Johnson, and you're watching Untethered Live, coming to you straight from the internet into your brain waves via my mind. That's a weird combination, but we like it. We're here. Hey, Cheese Bear. Good to see you, sweetheart. Glad you could make it. I am in the squiggly lines and having a good time. We are going to pick up where we left off on Wednesday. Got some atheist smashing to do this afternoon. How are you doing this fine evening, and how is the weather in your neck of the woods? It's been a nice warm day today here in the greater North Carolina area. Looks like I found my cigarette. Well, I found a cigarette. I still haven't found the cigarette. It's vanished. Went into the ether. Don't know what happened to it. Cold and rainy, huh? Where are you at? What part are you at? Upper, lower, middle, left or right? Because it's pretty warm around here. Speaking of smashing, I smashed that like button. Excellent. Always smash that like button. It's beautiful. You're in Tennessee. Okay. So it's cold and rainy in Tennessee and hot and balmy in North Carolina. Wonder what it's like in Florida. We'll find out soon enough. I'm going to take a wild stab at it and say hot and muggy. That's usually how it is in Florida. Thank you for smashing the like button. I hope you enjoyed last night's foray into the wee hours of the morning, and I hope you enjoyed Wednesday night's podcast, and I hope you're going to enjoy the one tonight. It'll go into the 20s tonight. Jeez. Well, it's going to have to hurry up. I got my air conditioner on right now. It's 8:30, and it's still about 75 degrees outside. Let's see what this says. It says it's 52 degrees outside. I don't believe it. If it's 52, it's 100% humidity. You certain it will? I'm sure it will. Just have to get up in the morning and or in the middle of the night, cut the air conditioner off and wrap up in a blanket. That's what I'll do. See, I'll outsmart it. I'll go to bed with a blanket. I'll be prepared when it happens. I lived in Iowa and Wisconsin. I'm good in the 20s. Yeah, the 20s is about as far as I want to go. I'm good in the 20s too, but that's about it. I don't want to go any further than that. I went to Minot, North Dakota for a couple weeks for a band show that I had going on up there. And I have never experienced cold quite like I did. It was in December, and it was freezing cold. I mean, way below zero. It's the coldest I've ever been in my life. I don't care to feel that again. That's the kind of cold that you start seeing tunnel vision after about 3 minutes of being in it. Like you're getting ready to just go to sleep. I guess I should shut my window tonight, LOL. Well, maybe, if it gets that cold. But if you're from Iowa, I don't think it's going to get that cold. I think you'll be like that Indian I saw up in Minot, North Dakota, walking around with no shirt on. Apparently he was used to it. I had on 5 layers and was freezing. Wind chill, minus 70. Wow. Can't even imagine that. That's like frozen tundra territory. I'm saying long before it gets to that temperature, I'm building a fire somewhere, somehow. I'm burning something. Well, I had a pretty busy day today. Had one of those fast-paced work days. Get a lot done in a short amount of time. Just buzzing around from daylight to dark. And now I'm on the podcast, chilling out, slowing down, getting ready to beat up on some atheists. Feeling good. Slow sizzle to sleepiness. I reckon everybody else will be along shortly. A nice fire always helps with a cup of tea. I prefer coffee, but I'm with you. I like a hot tea every now and then. Some honey. I'm more of a coffee guy. I drank some 100% Honduras coffee this morning. Powerful. Those guys cut people's heads off. Their coffee is just as strong. Well, what did you think of my little guest spot on Caucasian show last night? How did you like that? Rare glimpse at the other side of me. It's something I do probably once a month, something like that. I even had him on my show one time. It was a bit of a cluster, you know what, though. Because we had about 6 people on and they were all talking at the same time, and it just was not pleasant. Did you do your stretching exercise? Take your vitamins. We need you in top form to beat the atheists. I could beat them with half my brain tied behind my back. Both of them. So far, 30 minutes in, and I hadn't heard them say anything even mildly intelligent. Give you a minute. Okay. Here's a minute. Congratulations. You had me laughing so much. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Thank you. It's my pleasure, sweetheart. That is what we aim to do. Make you laugh until your sides hurt. It's a rare quality in a man to be able to make people laugh until they blow milk out of their nose. What's really rare is when you can make people blow milk out of their nose and they hadn't been drinking any milk. That's when you're funny. No minute for you. You're always late. No minute. Big shame. Shamey, 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 shamey. What am I giving you a minute for? Da 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 da. Ba-da-da-da-da, copyright strike coming soon. Bum, ba-da-da-da-da-dum. There's your minute. Boom, boom. Now what? Let's get crazy up in here. Mad skills if you can accomplish that. That's what I'm saying. Make you squirt milk out your nose and you ain't even been drinking milk. That's funny. I don't care who you are. I told a dumb joke. Caucasian went and copied it and put it online, clipped it, and now it's got over 3,000 views. That's pretty interesting. All right. We'll wait for Diego to get here and April and them, and we'll get started. That's right. Mod rule number 7. Always be on time. Or have a good excuse. He is a casual moderator. And the only one I have. Possession is 9/10 of the law. Sorry, Jake. No excuses on YouTube. What are you sorrying me for? Possession of what? I missed something. Possession is 9/10 of the law. Sorry, Jake. Are you talking about the moderator status? When I said he's the only one I got? Better. I know you wasn't expecting to see my ears on YouTube, but there they are. Oh. Possession of the joke. I got it. Okay. Yep. That's fine. I don't care if it's on his channel. As long as it's getting traction, I don't care who's showing it. He can take all the credit for it, make some money on it, whatever. That's why I do this. If I can't help everybody, I ain't trying to do nothing. But if I can help everybody, then that's awesome. He's doing better than me, though. He's got way more jokes that kind of views. I didn't even know I told a joke. I was just talking to somebody. I was talking to you, actually. I think it was you I was talking to. And he was like tripping over himself to get to the computer so he could clip it out because he thought it was funny. Apparently it was funny. I've been told that I have a sense of humor, but I'm not aware of such a thing. No, sir. I do not have a sense of humor that I'm aware of. I was talking to you. I thought so. It's Friday night. April and Kevin must be out partying. Yeah, I read it right. Wee. Me and we in the same sentence is always a good sign. I must be doing something right. All right, Caucasian, it's been 5 minutes. Where you at? I've given you some extra time now. Diego. How about that? What's up, buddy? Good to see you. I knew you would be there just then. It's on now like Donkey Kong. 7 minutes, but who's counting? Certainly not me. Math is racist anyway, apparently. Hey, Diego, are you any kin to the other Fuentes that's from that area? I can't think of his name right now. Nick Fuentes, is that it? Conservative commentator? Math rocks. I know it does, and you know it does, but there's a whole generation that thinks math is racist. Which is blowing my mind, because I can't imagine what the next generation is going to be like if they think math is racist. Imagine all of the engineers of this generation. Just imagine the things they will build and the danger it will possess or present. Snowflakes, the lot of them, yep. What do you think of my new background, by the way? It's moving. I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. Like I just drank some Mad Dog 2020. The kind of alcohol that after drinking you can see vapor trails behind you. All right, Diego, are you ready to break out some atheist skull busting? Microsoft computer one? I hadn't seen it, I don't think. Oh, I know what you're talking about. Like the screensaver. Yeah, it's similar. You're supposed to do that on Thursdays and Saturdays. What guest? And is it a good interview? Yeah, y'all both live in Tennessee. Got a bunch of folks from Tennessee on this podcast. No excuses on YouTube. Not forgiven. Banhammer. Good thing I didn't give her a wrench. Caucasian. Howdy, neighbor. Do you want to be my neighbor? I think it's too late. Hi, boys and girls. Can you spell pederasty? I think it's too late. Did I go too far with that joke? I think I went too far. I'm sorry. Lord, forgive me for that. That's not funny. He sounds like he's still interviewing. I'll be civil for now. I don't need your Civil War. Oi, me. I'm interviewing a UK guy currently. Interesting. What are you guys talking about? Dish. Nothing? Okay. Well, I am certainly excited to break into this atheism business and finish up what we started on Wednesday. I know you guys were enjoying that intensely. Just kind of waiting to see if April and Kev will show up. But if they're not here in the next 3 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Because I ain't got all day. Yeah, I do. I have nothing else. I don't have a life or anything. Diego, what have you been doing today, my friend? Anything exciting and interesting? Well, not trying sweet tea and not wanting to are two completely different things, and one of them is a sin. At least in the South. Are you one of those bitter drinker types? Never tasted anything sweet? What would you do with a mouthful of Kool-Aid, I wonder? Mm. There's two things in this world that'll kill you faster than anything. One of them's a bullet, and the other one is a mouthful of Kool-Aid. Bleh. And that's like the Southern kryptonite. I think you'll be fine, though. You just drink your unsweetened tea. The world needs Yankees. We can't all be Southern. If we were all Southern, nobody'd be able to understand anybody. Yes, I like my tea without sweetener. I like my tea that enhances my accent. You know, where I could drink and go, why, I never. I do declare. What's the weather like where you from? You know. I love each and every one of you, too. Bullet. I don't think it's a flaw, honey. I think you're just from the north. I don't think that's flawish. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Everywhere is south to somewhere. Just think, to Canada, you're southern. Did you know that if you were standing on the North Pole, everywhere is south? You literally cannot go in any direction but south. You ever thought about that? Things that make you go, what? All right. I think we've had enough of chit-chatting. Down here. You need a minute. Okay. All right. I'll give you a second minute. And then tell me when to start. while you're taking your minute, I'm going to text April and see where she's at. Help! Exclamation point. I am stuck in a phone factory. Let's see if that does the trick. Sorry, sir. Can I please have another? Want some more? Is that the wrong kind of UK guy? Hey, what's that coming from that moon? You were given a minute 19 minutes ago. You remember Graham and Derek from Myth Vision? Myth Vision. The place where things that you can see with your own two eyes aren't good enough for you to believe. All right. Here we go. Let's dig in, ladies and gentlemen. There's an April. I was beginning to wonder if you were coming. You don't call, you don't write, no smoke signals. Oh, it's 8:30. Jake's on. Hurry up. Maybe he won't notice we weren't there. I talked you into a cup of tea with turmeric? That's gross. Isn't turmeric like tangy? Bitter? The other guy's still creepy, but Derek is okay. I don't know. He seems way too excited to be having this interview. Watch him. He's actually physically licking his lips while the other guy's talking. It's kind of weird. Why, hello, April. And you're not late. You're right on time. Here we go. Now, if you remember, we left off, he was talking about killing babies and how that should be immoral. Why he would ever think that, I don't know, but that's what it was on his mind where we stopped. Turmeric is good for the stomach. I bet it is. Still tangy and bitter, though, right?
There are some basic moral principles that are more or less universal, and I'm quite happy to think of them as just being kind of necessary truths. So in that sense, we have objectivity. There are truths, basic truths. Now, I'm giving examples of, saying what the basic truths are will be quite difficult. But I can give you examples of truths. So I think, for example, it's just true.
Can you say example one more time?
It's wrong to torture infants for your own pleasure. I think it's just true that that's
just for
wrong.
example.
And it couldn't be otherwise. It's not like you can imagine. No, I can't. If I start telling you a story about some imaginary world in which it's okay for people to torture infants for pleasure.
Please don't Imagine a world where it's okay for people to torture infants for their pleasure. What is wrong with you, you buck-toothed alligator?
I think that you'll kind of think, well, there's something wrong with this story.
You
You might
think?
as well have written a story in which 2 and 1 equals 107, right?
No, those two things are not the same thing. 2 and 1 equaling 107 is not the same thing as torturing babies for your pleasure. Talk about relative equivalency. Quit with the word salad and get to a point, my man.
I'd have had just as much trouble engaging with the story in that case as in the one that you gave.
Really?
So in that sense, I definitely agree with Peter's current position. I think that there's a kind of...
No, he's not talking about abortion. He's talking about like putting spikes under the baby's fingernails for his pleasure. Like torture. As an example, that's the first thing his mind went to when he was looking for an example to describe whatever it is he's trying to say. I don't know about you, but that's not where my mind goes automatically.
Objectivity to morality that's actually kind of similar to the objectivity of mathematics. I mean, that might not be Peter's view, but that's my view. On the other hand, the kind of epistemology here seems easier for mathematics than it is for morality. In mathematics, we can prove things, and once we prove them, we know where the truth lies. In ethics, once we've got disputes, they're often quite hard to resolve, and there's nothing like proof that we can appeal to help us do the...
Yes, there is. Appeal to the first documents written in the text of the Bible. When you are talking about biblical things, you can appeal to the authority of the Bible.
Resolving. Wow. I think that we agree about lots of stuff. And so let's take a basic principle that you shouldn't kill. Well, that's not right. I mean, nobody thinks that. The basic principle is something more like this. You shouldn't kill except when you're allowed to, right? And now what happens is that we just disagree about what are the exceptional cases. For some people, there are hardly any. Maybe you can only kill in self-defense, or maybe self-defense and defense.
Well, since you're a philosophy guy and not a lawyer, let me explain it to you. There are different kinds of killing. In the Bible, the word is phonios in the Greek, and that means criminal homicide. That means to lie in wait. That is murder. To kill someone in battle is not the same thing. To kill someone in self-defense is not the same thing. To kill someone over a crime of passion is not the same thing as lying in wait and murdering someone. Having designs on killing them and carrying it out is a sin. It is the only kind of murder that is a sin.
Of kith and kin, right? You're kind of nearest and dearest. Other people might think, no, there's some more things. Like you can kill if you're fighting a just war. You can kill if you're appointed by the state to carry...
Notice that he clarified by saying, if you were fighting a just war. There are lots of wars that people engage in that is neither ordained by God nor necessary by man's standards, yet we fight them anyway.
Carry out certain kinds of roles, and in the pursuit of those roles, like police, armed forces, or whatever, there's kind of no alternative that's available to you in the circumstances. You can kill. I mean, all the other cases are like this too. It has to be kind of, there's nothing else you could do. But then we can broaden this out. Some people think it's okay to kill animals for food. Some people think it's okay to do it.
Who doesn't think it's okay to kill animals for food? That's literally what animals are for. Can you think of a higher purpose for a deer than to be on my dinner plate? You ever seen one run for office or build a house or, run a marathon? No. They're food. That's what they are. Not all animals, but the ones that you eat are.
Fun, and so on.
For example, I wouldn't go hunt dog, but I would go hunt deer.
The question isn't about the principle that you're not allowed to kill except when you're allowed to. The questions are about, okay, so which are the cases where you're allowed to?
Yeah.
So I think that it's kind of that you're not allowed to kill except when you're permitted to. That strikes me as just the truth.
Is it just me, or has he said that sentence, you're not allowed to kill, you can't kill unless you're allowed to? Has he said that like 10 times already, or is it just me? Is he repeating himself because he has nothing to actually say considering the subject?
Right.
Interesting. Okay. Shifting gears just a tad, because I mean, I've been jabbing with various topics. We've been really jumping around, and I apologize for that, but that's because I've been interviewing various people on different backgrounds and wanting your specific take.
Sounds like an excuse to me, buddy. Get with the program.
So, being someone who is you obviously are a professor in philosophy on religion, would you agree that God keeps getting more complex? And what I mean is, the way I look at it, when I look at antiquity and I'm checking out these really ancient stories, you get down, let's just say, let's use the Mesopotamian mythologies, for example, or Akkadian, whatever. Then you get down into the Hellenistic age where you have, they're allegorizing ancient stories. Even people who are part of that same tradition start to allegorize. It seems to be a common motif, especially when Hellenization takes over. Even a lot of the Old Testament, like
Hellenization.
Philo's.
That's like saying Greekization. What are you saying? As far as I know, Helena has always been there. They didn't take over. I don't know what he's talking about.
Allegorized or whatever. Philo of Alexandria. I say that to say, like, it seems like the complexity of religion and God or gods become more complicated as our science advances. Is
Nope.
it because they're competing, you think, to try and keep their sacred traditions and religions and say these are still good and these should be, believed and followed today?
First of all, every science that you can think of, you pick the ism or the whatever the science is, all of them were started by Christians. All of them. Now, are we competing with science? No, science is the only thing trying to get rid of God. God is not trying to get rid of science. Nobody that's a Christian wants science to disappear. We just want you to stop pushing lies. That's the only difference. And that's capital S science, not regular science. I love biology and physics and any other ology you can think of. I don't love evolution and things of that nature because they are lies. Lies to discredit and destroy faith in God.
And I say that saying, I think that that's the case for Christianity, because when I look at the God of the Bible, he appears to people, he's walking with them like in flesh and bones, and
it's a past tense. He appeared to people. He walked with people. He doesn't do that anymore.
Certain sources of the Old Testament, if you take the documentary hypothesis and stuff, but it seems like God could smell the sacrifice of the animals, like
Yes.
he's in space and time. But now you go to people and he's like, he's outside of space and time, beyond our imagination.
He was outside of space and time then as well. That hasn't just came about. Remember, in the beginning, that's time, God created the heavens, that's space, and the earth, that's matter. He was outside of all of that to begin with. And then he created it within whatever parameters he decided. That means that he can interact with it, or he can stand back from it and see it as a whole. We can't do that because we are part of it.
Doesn't God and these religions evolve to try and keep up with our advancements?
So, and I guess to some extent that's right. Certainly, the conceptions of God evolve.
No.
Why they evolve?
You can't squeeze evolution into God. God has not evolved. He's always been the same God.
is perhaps less clear. I'm not sure that it has to do with science.
Right.
I mean, it depends a little bit on your views about when and where science was important. If you have the kind of view, which is not uncommon, that science really doesn't get going as a kind of institution in the West until Galileo, religion spent a lot of time evolving before.
You think that the guys that built the pyramids just did it by accident? You think they just piled some rocks on top of one another and they just happened to form a pyramid? Or do you think they planned that shit out? Science has been around for a very long time. Do you think Noah built the ark by accident or just by figuring it out as he went? Or do you think he had schematics? What do you think the description God gave him was? He gave him dimensions. He gave him a blueprint so that he could build the ark. That's scientific. You understand? When when Isaiah spoke about the circle of the earth, do you think he was guessing? When God said that he put the stars after he created the earth, do you think he was guessing? When he said he stretched out the heavens, do you think he was guessing? Or do you think he knew that the space is expanding because he expanded it? That's scientific in nature. So literally from the very beginning, science has been a part of creation from the first day. And you could argue even before that. So your hypothesis is wrong all the way around, and I reject your reality.
Then. It's not clear that science, I mean, let's put that view aside and suppose, that science is a kind of fairly ancient enterprise, and the Greeks had, in some ways, had quite advanced science, for example, in astronomy,
not in dispute,
mathematics, but there are also kind of aspects of engineering that they were quite advanced in as well. It doesn't seem very plausible that those advancements in science were in any competition with the religions that those people practiced. So I think it's going to be hard to kind of run a story that it's science that pushes religion to change.
Really?
That kind of leaves an open question then about the why there are changes.
In the 1700s in Cambridge, 1800s at Cambridge, they had a meeting of the minds where all of the philosophers and professors got together and they had a meeting, and one of the things that was the topic of that meeting was how to remove God from the curricula so that they could practice their sexual mores without fear of retribution. You see, the Bible says in those days there will be scoffers that walk the earth that are willingly ignorant of the flood and the coming judgment. And they will ask, well, where is this God you speak of? Haven't things continued as they always have? Meaning, evolution is the new religion. It is a religion, as evidenced by your willful ignorance of the subject matter at hand.
One thing that I think is useful to look at would be to look at a different religion. So look at Hinduism, which is quite old, and look at the extent to which really there have been significant changes in Hindu beliefs.
Hinduism is not a real thing. It is a understanding of an event that took place in the past that they built a religion around. The only true Christianity is the only true religion. You could argue that Islam is also a true religion because it comes from the same family, and I've illustrated that on my Bible study, where Isaac and Ishmael split off and went their different ways, and through Ishmael would come Islam, and through Isaac would come eventually Christianity, but first Judeo understanding of God. Now, Hinduism is not that kind of a religion. It's not one of the world's 3 major religions. There's only 3. And they're all based on the same religion. So you're either straw manning us or you don't understand what you're talking about. You're trying to lump all religions together. Remember Wednesday when I told you that all other gods do not claim to have created everything. They come from within creation. Only one God has ever claimed to create all things, and that is the Almighty Father. And it goes back way further than you could imagine. Akhenaten was worshiping the one true God in ancient Egypt. Jingxi was the one most high in ancient China. It goes back further than you could possibly imagine.
In the last 1,000 years. And I suspect, although I'm not an expert on this, that you might well find that there's much less dramatic change. Because by 1,000 years ago, all of the main Hindu schools of philosophy have been established. They've all been arguing with each other for a long time. I suspect that you'll find that there's much less change than there is in some other areas. Though again,
that was vague.
It's not clear that say that Catholic beliefs have changed much since the Catholic conception.
Catholic is not a religion. Catholic is a viewpoint based on a religion, the religion that we worship. Catholicism is not a religion. It is a perspective on a religion. It is a group of people that practice a particular portion of a religion. But the religion is Christianity. That's, again, a straw man.
God, the kind of whole theology, the stuff, everything. If you read Aquinas and you look at the theology now, it's not clear that it's changed that much.
Okay. So it is an open question, though, ultimately on what caused some of the things that we see, it might just be a different jurisdiction because Christianity doesn't seem altogether the same as what we see in the Hebrew Bible. It might be utilizing it, but it's a different time.
That's because Christianity and Hebrewism are not the same religion. You know that the Hebrews don't believe Christ was God in the flesh. The Israelites. You know that, right? The Jewish religion does not accept Christ as the one true God, as Christians do. That is the separation, the difference. That religion didn't start until the death of Christ. Before that, everybody believed in Judeo religion. They believed in I am that I am. They believed in the Creator. They believed in Noah's flood. They believed in Moses and the law that he put down based on what God told him. That was the Judeo religion. Judaism. That's the word I was looking for, couldn't find. Before Christianity, it was Judaism, which is what you're reading, which is why you don't understand why it doesn't match up with Christianity, because they're not the same religion. Remember, a religion is a man's interpretation of the truth. That's all religion means.
Time, too. So a different time, different age, different purposes and cultural dynamics and et cetera, et cetera. There's plenty of factors that might play a huge significant role in that. The question I have for you maybe to be, and I don't know why I keep drawing these blanks every time I go to ask you a question specifically on your particular
because you're dumb
background, but what is your favorite atheist philosopher from antiquity? And I'll say from the Western philosophy, of course. What's your favorite?
Okay, so let's not go with antiquity because it's kind of controversial whether there are atheists.
What? Are you suggesting that atheism is a modern trope that people in the old days knew better? Is that what you're saying?
Some people say before the 18th century. Now, this is tricky. I don't believe it. in the West. And it's clear that in the Indian tradition, the Charvakas are atheists, they're materialists.
Sidebar. The thing that people have against crosses is that it's an idol, it's an image, and you're not supposed to worship images. Christ came off of the cross. So there's a difference between a crucifix and a cross. And in my opinion, a crucifix is disrespectful because Christ came off that cross. He's not still hanging on it. But as far as wearing them, as long as you're not worshiping it, I don't see a problem with that. I mean, I have crosses because I like the way crosses look, but I don't worship them. They're just things. So, I hope that helps.
There, and this is 6th century BC. But in Greece, it's much more controversial. There's a few people who are known as atheists, but they tended to be people who just rejected the popular gods. And I mean, something that you didn't mention, but you could have, is that at least by the time of Plato, there were monotheists amongst the Greeks, because Plato was one of them, people who had this idea about a single God. So I would prefer to...
One of those monotheists. I can't follow a thing this guy's saying. He's all over the place. He talks about God as if he's an afterthought. He's not. He is the central driving force throughout reality, throughout history. There are other cultures that have multiple gods. All of those gods are little g gods. None of them are the big G God.
To answer the question in connection with the kind of, say the 18th century in Europe.
Okay. Yes, Diego, there's nothing wrong with a cross. I'm just suggesting you shouldn't worship it or hold it in high esteem. It's okay for it to remind you of Christ. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. So I guess Holbach is my favourite, but then I kind of like him not so much for his writings, but for his absolutely astonishing life. So Holbach is
Holbach is my favorite atheist, not because he's an atheist, but because his wife was hot.
Interesting figures in the 18th century, I think. So he had a very rich uncle. His uncle made a fortune on the stock exchange, and once he'd made all this money, he ran a salon in Paris. And when he died, Holbach was his sole heir, and so he inherited the salon and a bucket load of money. And so for the rest of his life, Holbach ran the best salon in Paris. So they had fantastic food, the best wine. He had one of the best libraries in existence. And he entertained all of the kind of intellectuals and many of the royals of the time. And and he would have a big collection of people, like there'd be 15, 20 people around the table, and they would just talk about whatever. Now, as it happened, he had a kind of inner circle, and they were all atheists. And this was at a time...
Good one, Cheese Bear.
It was neither respectable nor safe to be an atheist, really. And they were revolutionaries, and they had a big influence on the what eventually became the French Revolution. And Holbach published a whole stack of anonymous books, and nobody knew who was writing these books, and it didn't become known that it was him until well into the next century. And so he had this kind of double life, because he did get everybody to come to his salon, and everyone kind of willingly participated in these kind of no holds barred conversations about whatever. But on the other hand, he was an extremely radical figure, kind of politically and philosophically.
Wow.
So yeah, and if I could get in my time machine and go back and meet someone, I'd like to go back to his salon. Maybe on a day when, say, David Hume was there, because Hume visited. Because
you probably need to have a head of hair before you go to a salon. Just saying.
Everybody did. So.
Okay. Have you heard of Dr. Tim Whitmarsh? He wrote a book called Battling the Gods.
Mm-hmm. I've read that book.
Okay. What did you think about his ideas? Because I think he agreed with everything you said about the ancients. The difference, though, I think he said it does appear there are some, very few, it's not like a common thing, but there were few in antiquity. I guess what's not appealing to you isn't that there weren't possibly atheists. It's just what we have of them isn't much. It's scant. So really nothing influences you on a major scale, right?
So Whitmarsh is one of the influences on my view, right? When you look at the details about the particular people who are known as atheists, there's not much to enable you to say whether they were or they weren't.
Right.
That's because in the old days, people actually valued the knowledge of God. They didn't go around like with chips on their shoulders touting to the rooftops that they didn't believe that they were their own gods, that they could have control over their own lives. In the old days, people realized that there was a force greater than themselves acting in the universe, and they took pride in it, which is why you would be hard-pressed to find an atheist from those days. They did exist, but you're right, they were scant.
And I figured, the right approach is for me to, as almost everywhere, to key my beliefs to the experts. I take Whitmarsh to be one of the experts, so that's why I have the view that I do, because I've read him and I've read a few other people like him. It's not that for example, I don't read Greek, so I can't do all that. And so
That's good for you, Cheese Bear. You stood up for what you believe in, and you will be rewarded for that, by the way. Not very many people have the stones to do that, so congratulations on that one.
Do the independent research. Yeah.
I totally respect that, and I really enjoyed his book as well, and I can't wait to dig into yours. Shifting gears again.
Wait, you haven't read his book? What are you doing interviewing him if you haven't even read his book?
A presuppositionalist comes at you and says, and I've heard actually, there was one named Darth Dawkins. He's kind of a trollish kind of character on the internet. And I don't know.
Darth Dawkins. I'm going to take a wild stab and say that's probably Richard Dawkins or somebody that follows him. He's anonymity persona grata.
You know, if you know who I'm talking about. But
I do, because I had a conversation with him once.
Can you tell me about this conversation? How would you, if you were to just tell me what you think about the conversation, then we could probe maybe more into.
So I don't know.
Drink, everybody. He says started a sentence with the word "so" again.
I don't want to say something disrespectful.
Right.
So, but presuppositionalism as a strategy is sort of, it feels to me like it's out of a kind of primary school playbook, right? Because no matter what you might say to a presuppositionalist, they're just going to insist that what you said presupposes that their view is true, right? That's basically the strategy. And you can see that there's not much point getting into a conversation with somebody who has that approach. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to know how to make a conversation with somebody like that more productive.
Translation: it's not okay to get into a conversation with somebody that actually believes what they're saying, because you can't change their mind. You can't persuade them to believe falsities.
What I tried to do is to say, look, we need to probe the notion of presupposition, right? There have been books written by major philosophers about presupposition, and there's a small range of accounts that you could take about what it is for somebody to presuppose something. And on none of those accounts do I presuppose the things that you're attributing to me, right? And that's the way that, it seems like the only kind of way of responding, and it's not going to have any effect because nothing can, right? Once you've invested in that rhetorical strategy, you've cut yourself off, both from actually having to sort of think about whether your position's defensible, but from any serious engagement with what anybody else says. That's how it seemed to me, anyway.
Yeah, it's definitely a technique that it's almost a script in the head. Well, what is your absolute primary like this foundational, and it's like, whoa, like they suppose there must be a first cause
There
that
must
causes
be.
everything, of course. And so how would you address that idea? And I'm not, I'm not even a Christian, so I'm asking you.
So, all right. So, there must be a first cause of everything. Nothing just happens. Nothing. There's nothing random about the universe in which we live, which means everything follows rules. Come on, man. You don't even have to be a Christian to believe that.
I think that it's kind of an open question whether causal reality has an origin or not.
Really?
So
it's an open question that cause is caused by effect? What? Have you completely lost your grip on that causal reality? If I smack you, will you not recoil in pain?
I guess it's a question for physics. So some physicists, so Anthony Aguirre is one, thinks that there's no origin, right? We live in a multiverse, and the space of the multiverse is infinite in the past. So pick any point, there's an earlier point. There's no origin. Suppose that the multiverse theory is wrong and there's just one universe.
So imagine that.
It kind of looks as though our universe has an origin. It's clearly expanded from a very small initial.
You are not helping your argument by agreeing with the opposition. Yes, we live in a singular universe. There's no such thing as the multiverse. That's a Marvel invention. Second, our universe most definitely had an origin. Third, it was not the Big Bang. Fourth, it was caused by something that was there before it.
State, that much we kind of know. The details of the very earliest bit still elude us. We don't know how to put quantum mechanics and general relativity together to get a kind of quantum gravitational theory that will accurately describe that first bit. It might be that that's all there is. I mean, there are other possibilities here, sort of bounce possibilities where you get a kind of endless cycle
Right,
of
Cheese Bear.
expansions and contractions, whatever. But maybe that's right. If the universe does have a beginning, you still might think it could be that it kind of gets closer and closer to that origin point without actually reaching it, so there's no beginning. Or you might think, there's an initial state, right? If there's an...
Is every single thing that he proposes, is he going to propose both sides of it so that there's no definite answer? You notice that? It's like, it kind of looks like the universe has a beginning and that it started at a certain point, but it kind of don't also. Pick a side, dude.
Initial state, then there is a first cause. In that sense, a first cause from which everything follows. That's only one notion of first cause, because there's also the kind of Thomistic idea that there's something that supports everything into existence, keeps it in existence from one moment to the next.
It's called God.
I don't think you need anything like that. Right. Yeah. I think the universe is it's a big boy. It can go on its own. Right.
I recently interviewed Professor Krauss, actually, on, he's a theoretical physicist, and he was mentioning, how particles coming in and out of existence, that is a plausible hypothesis for the existence of the universe. And if it came in with zero energy, then this is why we have a long-lasting universe that comes to be at all.
What? Because particles pop in and out of existence, that is proof that our universe exists. All this isn't. And if it comes in with zero energy, that proves it didn't have an origin? First of all, there's no such thing as zero energy. Everything has energy. Everything produces energy. Everything. Second of all, whether it came in with energy or not does not prove that it had an origin or not. It's just a particle. They're everywhere. There's 70 to the 110th power particles in the universe. 110th power, something like that. I don't know. It's a lot.
I don't know this stuff, like the science and even the philosophy that you're talking about here, but I don't really know any of this stuff like you, and I want to learn more about it, which is why I'm interviewing you now. But it's a fascinating discussion because I never thought, is it possible that all that we look at could exist without God? And
No.
I've really enjoyed this. This has been a fascinating interview. If someone out there right now is struggling, let's just say they all they know is the biblical stuff, but they're interested in doing a dive into try and reasonably look and say, could there not be a God for all causes to be everything that we see? Is there a strong philosophical stance that could be taken that supports the reality that we see around us?
If someone out there is struggling, this podcast is not going to help them in the slightest bit, because you people have spent an hour speaking vehemently and saying nothing. I can't think of a single point either one of you have made in this entire thing. All you did was suppose a bunch of stuff and then drop it when it got serious. Second of all, if someone only knows the God stuff, they're not struggling to find a way into atheism. Atheism is what happens when people can't answer God and they lose faith. It is not a thing to aspire to. It's the end of something, not the beginning.
What would you recommend them do?
Go back to reading the Bible.
So that's kind of an interesting question, right?
Right.
I mean, you're talking to a philosopher, so you might expect me to recommend. Well,
no, it's not Eugene Barrett, and neither one of them are making any sense at all. They're saying a bunch of words, but none of them mean anything. It's irrelevant. This entire conversation is irrelevant. It's a master class in irrelevancy.
Some philosophy, right? And maybe that's what I would do. Say, okay, so...
And if this is what passes for higher learning, I think I'm happy being an idiot. I don't think I want an education. If that's what an education looks like, I think I'm good.
Let's read some stuff that puts different opinions to the one that you hold, and then see whether you think that one of them is better than the opinion that you currently hold, especially if you're kind of wavering on the opinion that you've got at the moment. So, for example,
you have two opinions. One is that nothing, and the other is God in his infinite wisdom created the universe, and you are special among all things that are created. This entire place was built for you. And the icing on the top, you get to be saved and go to heaven and be with God for eternity, having everlasting life. Nothing.
You could have a look at something written by a naturalist philosopher of religion, defending the kind of naturalistic approach to religion, and see what you think. And you might decide after you've read it that actually, it doesn't do it for you, and it makes you happier being a theist. Or it might happen that you think, actually, I kind of like that more, and then theism just kind of withers away.
Well, as long as you like it, it doesn't matter if there's a higher authority that can judge you in the end. As long as you're happy with your decisions, the rest doesn't really matter, now does it?
It could go either way.
You are something else. The way you answered that was really well said, because you're not forcing anything down anyone's throat, and I appreciate the way you dealt with that. Last question I have, and then we'll wrap things up. I hope everybody who's watched this, I hope you accept my apologies for jumping around. But if you're watching this, you're probably stuck around this long because you realize, okay, this is a lot of interesting points are being covered in this interview. The final one is your interview or debate, if you will, with William Lane Craig. William Lane Craig's cosmological, argument. I've heard Sean Carroll debate him on this topic, and people on either side. William beat him, and Sean Carroll's teammate, Sean destroyed William. What would you say the weakest points of his position are based on your arguing or debating Dr. William Lane Craig?
He's an atheist. That's his weakest point.
Okay, so that's really hard to say. I know Bill quite well, and we've corresponded a bit over the years. I've had lunch with him a couple of times.
He's a great guy, and this is not a jab at him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, but so
isn't it though?
I'm not sure that I'm going to say there's a kind of weak spot where we can go in and kind of, we pull this little string here and the whole thing's going to fall apart. Right. I don't think that, his position is one that he's been thinking about for a long time. And whatever questions you ask him, he's going to have answers. There are things that I very strongly disagree with him about.
What are some of those?
But that's a different matter. Well, just since you asked about the Kalam cosmological argument, he thinks that supposing that there's an initial state, there's a reason for thinking that the initial state's got to be, there's an origin. It's got to be God, and God makes the universe.
Yeah, there's a reason he thinks that.
As I see no need at all for God, even if there's an initial state. I think we can just suppose that the initial state is whatever, give it whatever status necessary.
I think there's no God at all. It's just whatever. Well, if you're happy with whatever as your answer, then you are a bigger idiot than I thought you were. Because whatever is not an answer that's worthy of being an answer. It is the absence of an answer. The fact that God created the universe is an answer that is satisfying. Whatever is not.
Whatever that Craig wants to give to God and do without God. Right? So that's a big disagreement between us now.
Let's see how that works out for you.
That takes away one of what he takes to be the biggest reasons for wanting to believe in God. At least, or maybe I shouldn't quite put it like that, because after all, he does think that even if he would be justified in believing in God, even if none of the arguments were any good, right? Because he thinks he's got experience that kind of directly supports his belief. But it turns out that there's like 1,000 things that we disagree about, right? There's no one thing that I would point to and say, I really can't believe that he believes that thing, right? Yeah. There's a kind of package of things, and they fit together, the things that he believes.
It seems like, and I can only speak for myself, and we can't psychoanalyze other people, but it seems like confirmation.
You just spent the last 5 minutes psychoanalyzing a person for their beliefs, and now you're saying you can't psychoanalyze people? Why? Because it might come back on you? And your atheist friend here just said that there's a package of things that this Christian believes, and there's reason for him to believe those things, and it fits what he believes. I'm not sure that's a good argument for atheism, though. Matter of fact, I don't feel like I'm flexing my muscles at all on this debunking. I don't feel like I've had to. They've done it for me. What am I, chopped liver?
Bias often happens like, I wanted a God to be true. I didn't want what I was living to be a lie, or potentially, chemical, reactions in the brain with my emotional experience. And
pretty sure neither one of those things are why God exists or why you think that he exists. And I'm also pretty sure that it doesn't matter what you want. Your wanting God to exist is irrelevant to the fact that he does. You are not the be-all, end-all. You are not the moral authority or any other authority for that matter. You can't will God into or out of existence. All you can do is accept what's there or refuse to accept it like some people do.
Here I am. I've got to make this be true. Let me find a worldview with a foundation that supports that premise.
And that's it in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we have a problem, because of the world view. It is a world view. It is something that a collective of people have put together so that they can believe in it. There's another word for that. It's called cult. Atheism is a cult. It is a worldview put together by people who do not want to be subject to judgment by God. That is the only reason for atheism. There is no other reason for it. They do not want to stand before God in judgment. If there is a moral arbiter, if there is an authority figure, then you are subject to it. And he is the guy who's going to judge you. And you are therefore responsible for your actions, good and bad. That's what they're trying to avoid. Because make no mistake about it, one day you will be judged. One day you will stand before the Almighty Father and answer for everything you've ever done, good and bad. And you will be punished or rewarded accordingly, and there is nothing you can do about it.
I wonder if that's the approach that apologists such as Dr. Craig might be doing in order to confirm their already pre-existing beliefs.
He will think the same thing about you.
Right. That's
You
why I was
really don't want it to be the case that God exists, and you're just looking for things that will justify you in that kind of belief. And there's a kind of important kind of underlying point here, which is about the kind of symmetry of the competing positions when people disagree. And you want to be very careful about the kinds of explaining away that you do of someone else's position if you haven't first considered whether they're perfectly able to respond by saying the same kinds of things about you.
In other words, you don't want to pick a fight with somebody that can fight back and fight fair? That sounds to me like you're picking weak targets because you want to win, not because you think you're right. If you're right, then your beliefs will stand up to scrutiny. If you're right, then the points you make will be valid and sturdy. If you're right, the other party will not be able to argue against you. Guess what? You're not right.
That's not to say that it might not be true, right? I mean, independently on the basis of psychological research, we're all prone to all kinds of biases in our thinking. And it may well be that those biases affect what we think about, for example, the existence of God. But that's just a human problem that afflicts all of us. It's not something that's kind of a particular problem for naturalists or theists or whoever.
Yeah, how about that? Why do you suppose in an atheistic worldview where you evolved from a monkey, why is it that all mankind is pre-programmed to seek out and need to worship a god? Why do you think that is? What evolutionary benefit does that have? If there's no God and you were evolved, why do you think you evolved that need? That hole that's in your soul, that God-shaped hole. Why do you think you have that? Can you say that it's cultural? No, it's not, because all cultures have it. Can it be societal? No, it's not, because all societies have it. Could it be race-related? No, because all people have it. Animals don't have it. You've never seen a dog searching for a church to belong to. But all mankind, even atheists, have a need to fill that hole with something. Why? It's almost as if you were built and programmed to seek your Father and find his approval. Imagine that.
So someone right now thinks you don't want to believe in God, just like me. You know what I mean? Someone thinks I don't want to believe in God, and how would you answer them? And then we'll say goodbye.
Okay, so I have written some stuff about this too, because it's one of the kind of interesting questions that's been discussed a little bit in philosophy in the last decade is whether we should want to believe in God.
You have no choice.
And it seems to me that the answer to that question is, at least for me, I have no desire to believe in God. I don't want to believe in God, and I shouldn't, right? So I'm kind of happy with that.
I call you a liar.
As a position.
Yeah, I'm fine with that too, but I think that often the people who are making that accusation are doing it with motives. It seems like their motives aren't just like two philosophers might be sitting there. They've dealt with these arguments. They've literally heard a million of these things before. They know the language. They don't feel any emotional tension when you say you don't believe in God and you don't want to. They don't feel like they have to convert you. They don't feel like they're forced to make you change your mind or anything. But it sounds like oftentimes that is what I find on my end. I was the apologist, and now I'm like, okay, I just want to educate people, like, to know evolution is a fact. You know,
Evolution is not a fact. That's why they call it a theory. So your desire to educate people has failed from the get-go because you don't seem to understand that it's not a fact. A fact is something you can test, repeat, and prove. You can't do that with evolution because it's not real.
not just a conspiracy or something. Like, I want people to know some facts. And
here's a fact: you are not an educator. That's a fact.
They think that I just don't want to believe in God because I hate God, or I want to live a sinful life, or whatever it might be. And it's not really my motive. To me, I honestly am beginning to think like I've been tricked in my own head this whole time. Like, I really think I've been tricked.
Yes.
And I feel like it's okay that I say that, and I'm not asking them to.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, the idea that you hate God or that you're sinful or something like that is something that, from your point of view, is going to seem really weird. Like, there are all kinds of things I don't believe in, like the Easter Bunny, but I don't hate the Easter Bunny.
Oh, the Easter Bunny is not the living God, nor is he a representation of such. Why would you compare God to the Easter Bunny? They're not even the same ballpark. They're not even the same sport, let alone the same ballpark. And by the way, April, they believe in themselves. That's who they believe in. They think they are God. These people are morons. They don't have a brain cell between the two of them.
Right.
You sure?
And yeah, I'm absolutely sure. Right. I mean, it would be pointless to have an attitude of hatred towards things that don't exist. So of course I don't hate God. Right. I mean, I think that God doesn't exist.
Well, you think that God doesn't exist. That is not proof that he doesn't. So your hypothesis is incorrect. It would be pointless to have hatred towards something that does not exist. You don't know that God doesn't exist. That's where faith comes in.
That's where my attitude stopped. The idea that there's a hatred there seems to me to be just absurd. What must happen on the other side is that they're imputing to you some level of belief in God. At some level, you know God exists. Now we can make sense of the idea that you hate God.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a kind of...
And on some level, you know that God exists too. That's why you're fighting so hard against him. Because if you thought God didn't exist, how much breath would you waste on arguing against his existence?
corresponding move on the other side.
I mean, I don't hear you talking about the Easter Bunny.
So George Ray insists that really deep down everyone knows that there's no God, right? There are people who believe in God are just self-deceived. At some level, they know it isn't so.
Yeah, because self-deception is where God comes from. That's what leads people to God, is self-deception, not an epiphany, not an awakening, not enlightenment, but self-deception. Have you ever met a Christian? Have you ever asked a single person why they believe in God or what led them to God? I don't think you have, because you don't have the correct answer.
Now, that kind of dispute is, I think, is not very edifying on either side, right? It was a trope for hundreds of years that there couldn't be intellectual atheists, right? Everyone knew deep down that God exists. Atheists, if there were such people, were just saying things for show,
Right.
or out of vanity or something like that.
Kind of like what's happening here. Can you see the irony in your statement there, Mr. Podcast Guy, Mr. Myth Vision?
Right. I just think that those kinds of accusations on either side are just baseless and unedifying and not getting us anywhere, and we should stop doing it.
Wow. This was amazing. Honestly, I seriously love every minute of this. I really appreciate you coming on.
I think it's just shy of mildly interesting. I think amazing is a strong word to describe this podcast.
I hope everybody goes and checks out the books. Seriously, this one right here is a must get. It's for most people, such as myself, to get a better grasp on the basics. And that's what I need to do, in fact. I plan to have you back, if that's okay, in the future, to specifically talk about this book. I can promise you I won't do you dirty like I did this episode.
Please don't waste your time reading those books. That is that for that podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, won't you please take a moment and hit that subscribe button right there. Press the bell icon so you get notifications of when I'm going to be here. Smash that like button, smash it hard, smash it with vigor, but only do it once because we need the numbers. Share this video with somebody you love. Better yet, share it with somebody you don't love. Bring them into our family. Make them part of the fold. Be part of their solutions, not part of their problems. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you're thinking about. Question me, curse me, bless me, challenge me, confront me, conform with me, drink my Kool-Aid, drink your own Kool-Aid. As long as you're thinking, that's what I want. Critical thought coming from that brain of yours. And if you love what I'm doing and you see the efficacy of what I'm trying to build here, won't you please take a moment and go to paypal.me/JakeJohnsonBand. Every little bit helps. It's a win-win. It's a blessing for me. It's a blessing for you too. God notices these things, and I greatly appreciate your support. And I can't wait to bring more of this to you. Now, if you have other atheists or other proponents of atheism that you would like for me to combat, that you would like for me to tear to shreds and throw into my garbage pail, you just suggest them and I'll do it, because I'm ready to fight. I have the full armor of God on and I'm ready to battle, baby. This is my battlefield and I'm ready to win. I am a warrior for God. You see that? That's hell, fire, and brimstone. You see that? I'm scared of that one myself. Don't you get in my way, atheist. I'll tear you to bits. Now, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you had a good time tonight. I know I did. It wasn't as exciting as Wednesday night, but I kind of blew my wad on Thursday night over on the Caucasians channel, where he's at instead of here. But I do hope you enjoyed it. Now, let me see what I missed in the chat here. Thank you, April, for the wonderful support and the nice words. It means a lot to me. Cheese Bear, you're absolutely right. These guys are morons. Reading that garbage would be my own hell on earth. I concur. I think it would be a large waste of time. If he writes anything like he talks, I'm sure that book is a whole bunch of words that mean absolutely nothing. Like I said, that podcast is an hour and a half long, and I don't think that he said one thing the whole time that could be considered a point. And if he did make a point, he dismantled it in the next sentence. So that was a waste of time. Next. Diego, did you enjoy that? And who else have you got? There's got to be somebody better than that. And personally, I'm going to enjoy deleting that video. Delete it. What do you think, April? Did you have fun tonight, sweetheart? Please keep your eyes on the road. Hands on the wheel. Don't let Jesus drive. You do it. Hello? Is there anybody out there? Just not if you can hear me. Is there anyone home? Relax. It's just a little pinprick. Ow. You can't get the vax if you are a Democrat. I tell you what, I'm enjoying this aspect of this podcast, and I'm thinking about doing this on a regular basis if you guys are into it. Obviously, I'm searching around trying to find my niche in this arena, and if you think debunking atheists is a good thing, then show me by hitting the like button and leaving comments and telling me what you think, and I will continue to do it and get better at it and find more and more worthy opponents. Maybe the next atheist that we debunk will actually have a point. Maybe he'll actually believe what he's saying. That'll make it easier for me to fight him. Kind of hard to fight a wet noodle, which is what that guy was. I'm talking into my phone. I'm not texting, just talking. I'll get back with you. I loved it. Though you were battling them. Thank you. I'm pulling into my house now. Don't do that. Pull into the driveway. You can't afford to rebuild a house. Please thumbs down the video for me. It's not for the content, but the interview was horrendous. I don't like the negativity they were speaking about. Babies and, stuff like that was just uncalled for. Well, that's why they're atheists. If they believed in something, they wouldn't be atheists. Yeah, driveway, please. Don't run into the house. Run into the driveway. It's much less costly. But yeah, a lot of what they said was uncalled for, and I personally think that guy's got some twisted nature about him, because that's the first thing his mind jumped to when looking for something to use as an example. He just went straight to torturing babies. That guy might be a pedophile. You never know. He might not be, but he might be. There's something wrong with him, I promise you that. It's like a male feminist. Anytime you have a white knight or a guy who claims to be an ally to women, you can start the clock on the rape charge. I promise you it's coming. Because that's the kind of person that would be like that. Same thing with the atheists. They are a particular breed of human being, and you can just about tell what kind of person they are when they start talking that nonsense. And anybody that begins a sentence with the word so, there's something suspect about them to start with. So pay attention to that from now on. Typical. I either thumbs up or nothing. Thumbs down is when the delivery was this bad. Amen. It was bad. That's the kind of video that you watch to fall asleep to, because you know you're not going to miss anything or gain anything. Diego, did you leave me, buddy? Get your thoughts on the subject. The other guy seemed like he believes. He doesn't. He's an atheist too. But he used to be a Christian. He's a weak Christian because he didn't have enough faith to stay a Christian. And anytime somebody starts a sentence with, I used to be a Christian, but, all you're telling me is that you have no backbone and that you have no strength of character. Because if you did, you'd still be a Christian. Once you find God, you don't backslide out of God. If you do, there's something wrong with you. Know what I mean, Vern? Yeah, he is confused. Make feminists. They are either lighting the loafers or chasing liberal broads. Male feminists. Now, male feminists, anytime you find one of those guys, I promise you he has nefarious intent. Man, you're not a feminist because you're thinking about other things. I'm a Reformed Catholic, but still a Christian. Good for you. Good you got out of that system. Good for you. I'm glad you got out of that system because the Catholics are not good people. I mean, I'm sure that some of the people are good, but I'm talking about the religion itself. They break a lot of the commandments, is what I'm saying. They have a God that they call Father that claims to be able to absolve you of your sins, and calls himself Vicar, which is the same word as anti-Christ. Vicar of God instead of Christ. It is a horrible institution. And it breeds a lot of crazy chicks. And there's a reason for that. Oppression. You want to have a good night? Hang out with a couple of Catholic chicks. You know what I'm saying? Freaky deaky. Do you think there's hope for him, Jake? There's always hope for everybody, honey. It's not for me to say. I'm not the judge or the jury. I guess that would be between him and God. But there's always hope up until he draws his last breath. There's hope for him to get forgiveness. But he's going to have to seek it. Now, I don't know what is in his heart, and I don't know what's going to happen between the time he takes his last breath and the time he dies. But God knows. So, yeah, there's always hope. But hope is a fleeting thing, you know. It's enough to keep you going, but it's not enough to hang your laurels on. It's not enough to have faith and hope. You have to have faith in God and hope for the best. Maybe that helps. Maybe it don't. I know that's not the answer you were looking for, but that's the one I have to give. All right, boys and girls, I've had a great time tonight. I love you all with all of my heart, and I can't wait till Sunday night where we can get into some serious Bible study. Until then, though, ponder on what we've been through Wednesday and Friday and understand that this is a world full of that kind of thing, and it takes people like us to keep the tracks clear and the train moving forward. We must band together and reaffirm our beliefs, because if we don't, they will disappear. What do I mean? Breeds a lot of crazy chicks? I mean that Catholic chicks are freaky deaky. That's what I mean. All of them. I've never met one that wasn't. They like being choked and smacked around, and they like sneaking off and having lots of sex with lots of boys and girls and everything else. Freaky deaky. It's just the way Catholic girls are, probably because they're so oppressed. They're not allowed to experience anything, which means when it comes time for them to experience something, they go crazy. Not all, but all that I've ever met. And you're not a Catholic. You're a Reformed Catholic, so you don't count in that scenario. I'm always right, honey. I thought I was wrong one time, but I was mistaken. You're welcome. Thank you guys so much for tonight. I enjoyed the conversation. I always do. You guys always bring it, and I always love it. So thank you for that. Until Sunday night at 8 p.m., we will meet again. Thank you for watching so much.